Oh, well, hey. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So, summer's here, and now we need to snap back into reality and start planning for your actual real vacation this year. Let's go. Alright, well, if you're new to the channel, obviously the whole theme of this channel is going on adventures with my family and experiencing new things, and possibly some way down the road we'll give you some tips and tricks for your next adventure. So on today's episode we're going to be talking about planning your next vacation. And if you guys haven't caught the drift yet on this channel, the two main places that we like to go to is Kings Island and Cedar Point, both located here in the great state of Ohio, the heart of it all. If you guys have never heard of Kings Island or Cedar Point before, I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a brief history of both the parks. I'm going to also give you a little bit of a concept of some of the ways that you can save money, how much it costs if you don't want to save money, and some of the places that you could stay and go, and other things you could do in the area for both of these great parks here in Ohio. Who have been watching the channel, we have already kind of covered a little bit briefly on some of the passes and some of the benefits that you can get throughout the year for these passes, including add-ons. But with this video, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of a refresher. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail of some of the benefits of these passes, and especially for those who are going to be frequent flyers for these parks. I'm going to go multiple times during the year. So, without further ado, I hope you're ready, because this is going to be a long one. So buckle up, let's rock and roll. Alright, well, let's talk about Kings Island first. I'm going to give you kind of a brief history of the amusement park, and then we'll go from there. In the middle of the 1800s, there was a park called Coney Island near the Ohio River in the Cincinnati area. It was a pretty popular park, had a couple roller coasters eventually, and it was a good place for people to go with their family, relax, and have a whole lot of fun. Very similar to how Cedar Point's beginnings were. But Coney Island had a huge problem, and one of those problems was flooding. They had to come up with a plan, or basically, more or less, they had to move the park from one place to another. And eventually, around 1970, they came up with an idea to essentially move what was Coney Island to Mason, Ohio in Warren County, and make what is today Kings Island. Right, so, around 1972, the park was officially open. And one of the first roller coasters that they have there, and one of the most notable ones that's still there today, is the Racer. The Racer was originally from the Coney Island Park, but was moved to the Kings Island area, where Kings Island is also famous for its Eiffel Tower and its International Street, where it features a lot of European cities like Germany, the United Kingdom, France, so on and so forth. And there's different aspects to the park as well. Now, on one side, there's kind of a Coney Island scenic area. There's a Wild West area called Rivertown. There's also another part of the park as well, which is called Planet Snoopy, which is primarily for the kids, and a newly renovated area called Camp Snoopy as well, with plenty of rides for the kids. Kings Island is essentially just a little over 50 years old at this point, which is still, pretty old for its time, and still has a decent amount of history when it comes to it. The fact that it moved from one area near Cincinnati and had to move to another, that's pretty interesting in its own aspect as well. As of today, Kings Island has about 15 roller coasters. So it has plenty of roller coasters for a lot of roller coaster enthusiasts. One of those roller coasters is the Beast. which I'm sure a lot of roller coaster freaks out there are more than familiar with, and is still one of the most widely appraised roller coasters in the nation today. The Beast was established back in 1979, and as far as I'm aware of my research, it is still considered one of the longest wooden roller coasters in the world. And it has also had a lot of updates to it, and it is still a fun ride to ride today, especially if you do a night ride. Other formidable roller coasters that have come to the park as far as Kings Island goes is Diamondback, Banshee, Mystic Timbers, and Orion. These are all great rides. They all have a great history, and you know, I've ridden just about every single one of them, and I can tell you right now, they're a blast. You've also got plenty of choices for your kids as well when it comes to roller coasters at Kings Island. If you go to the Planet Snoopy area or the Camp Snoopy area, there's a couple roller coasters that are big, that your kids, that if they're big enough, can ride. And they don't have to be very tall to ride these rides, and a lot of these rides, as long as you're with them, you're able to get on them. But to kind of put it in perspective, as long as your kid is at least 46 inches or taller, they can get on any of the roller coasters at Planet Snoopy or Camp Snoopy. As a matter of fact, I would say the majority of the roller coasters in Kings Island, as long as they're taller than 46 inches, they can probably get on about 90% of those roller coasters, except for some of the most intense ones that involve a lot of loop-de-loops and inversions. If you see me looking down at my feet, it's because I got these large notes here, and I'm horrible at remembering things, so I do apologize. There is a bunch of things for both these parks. They're just so massive that, you know, it comes to one of our topics that we're going to talk about here soon. You know, how long should you stay with these parks? But until I get to that point, I want to kind of get into a little bit of the aspect of, you know, Kings Island also has a water park of its own. During the summer, when it's really hot out, and it's the midday, let's just say you went during the morning, and now it's the afternoon, and it's a scorcher outside. Well, one of the best ways you can cool off is obviously going either on a water ride, which, you know, Kings Island's got a couple of those inside the park, one of which is called Whitewater Canyon, highly recommend it. Or you can go to a traditional water park, Soak City, which is an addition to Kings Island itself. And as long as you got an admission from the front park, you're able to also get to the water park free of charge. You don't have to pay anything extra to get to these parks. If you've seen our last Kings Island video, you've seen me and my family hop on a train and go to the water park. This is an excellent way to rest your feet and also catch up on some of the sights when you're on your way to the water park. It's one of the very few parks that actually takes you from one completely different destination to another destination. Basically from the main park to a water park. And you can also walk to the water park if you choose to, but I choose to do the train whenever I need to. And able to do that, you have to go to Rivertown, and then from Rivertown it'll take you straight to the water park, and the train is usually operational all the way up until the point where the water park closes, which is typically 7 o'clock during the day. So Kings Island's got a lot of history, it's got a lot of rides, and it's got a lot of thrills, and a ton of things to do. Like I said, it's got roller coasters, it's got rides for the kids, it's got a water park, and it's also got a lot of entertainment like shows and events. Let's get to our next topic. What should you bring to Kings Island if you're going to spend the day at the park? If you've watched any of my videos, the couple videos that I did make of going to Kings Island, one of the things I preach, especially if you've got 2 kids that are at least 10 or under, push wagons. Push wagons are a dime a dozen. We have ourselves a radio flyer, foldable wagon. They fold up, they're pretty portable. You can throw it in the back of your trunk, bring it with you, and it'll hold about 2 to 3 kids depending on the workload. It will also serve as a great tool to have if you need to lug around any extra luggage. So let's just say, for instance, that you get to the park, either you buy a couple souvenirs or you play a couple of the games, and of course you get those big stuffed animals, and you don't want to lug that around with you or hold it or drag it all over the park. Well, one of the best ways that you can hold extra stuff is one of these push wagons. So if your kids aren't, if they don't want to sit in the wagon all day long, or if it's just a couple of them, or if you even just have one kid, it's a great way for you to lug other stuff around the park. Like I said in one of my first videos, it's kind of like your truck and trailer when it comes to amusement parks for a family person. One of the other things that I've been preaching is bringing a backpack. Get a backpack, get a lock for it, just like a little luggage lock, something small, and it kind of keeps people away from your bag. Obviously, you can't stop somebody unless you lock it to, like a fence or your push wagon or something. It's not going to stop them from taking the bag, but at least it makes them think twice if you have anything valuable in the bag. Anytime you go on any ride or anywhere in the park, try to keep all of your valuables with you. I know sometimes it can be pretty challenging, especially with some rides that request you to keep everything off of you. That means your glasses, your cell phone, your necklaces, anything and everything that could possibly be taken off the person without unbuttoning your shirt or unzipping your pants and taking it off has to be in a locker. Plus, one of the other benefits of having a backpack with you is obviously keeping extra items with you that you might need throughout the day. Whether it's towels, extra clothes, bathing suits, water bottles, or other essentials like maybe you need a battery pack because your phone's not going to last the rest of the day. Or if you're, for instance, a YouTuber and you need to carry some of your equipment with you, your vlogging equipment, and you need to throw it in the bag. That way it's not out in the open and someone's like, oh look, there's something cool and free, and it grabs it out of your wagon because it's out in the open. Trust me when I say this, by experience in some of my careers, if it's out in the open, it's a crime of opportunity. Not saying everybody is horrible out there, but sometimes people take advantage of other people. So try to lock up your items or keep them on you at all times. So having a book bag will definitely help you prevent that from happening. If you're going to be going to Kings Island for the whole day, those 2 things that I just mentioned are probably going to be your main things that you want to bring to the amusement park if you're going to be spending all day there. You're going to want something to haul your kids in, and you're going to want something to carry some extra stuff in because, for example, if you need towels and swimming suits because you're going to go to the water park later, bada bing bada boom, keep it in your book bag. And then if you're going to be walking around all day, and you know how kids are, well, now they can rest their feet by pushing them around in the park. So these are the 2 main things that you probably want to bring to a place like Kings Island. Kings Island is located not in the most touristy area of Ohio, so don't expect to be going to sightseeing like a beach or any other places like that. But there are a few things that you could do at Kings Island as well. One of which is what we're going to get into now, is where to stay. So Mason, Ohio, particularly where Kings Island is, there is a plethora of hotels and motels that you could stay at, especially if you want to try to save $1 or $2 and not try to spend too much money. Now, if you and your family live 2 to 3 hours away or even further and want to try to make this into somewhat of a weekend deal or even a vacation type of deal, there are places that you can stay. There is also a resort area called, I believe, Cedar Resort RV, or the Cedar RV Resort. Don't quote me on that. It's on the map. But there's also a place literally in walking distance to Kings Island, and that is the Great Wolf Lodge. Alright, so the Great Wolf Lodge. I've talked about it in a couple of my videos before. It's a great place to stay if you're planning on making this kind of a vacation-esque trip at Kings Island. If you're planning on going a couple days to Kings Island and you need a place to stay, Great Wolf Lodge is a great alternative. For example, Great Wolf Lodge provides very clean rooms, lots of space, restaurants inside if you want to get something to eat, or you can also go to its huge indoor water park. If it's during the summertime, there's also an outdoor pool that is adjacent to the actual water park itself as well. Now, like I said, there are cheaper alternatives that you can go to around Mason, Ohio, and I might get into that one day, that also provide a pool, either indoor or outdoor, and it's going to be probably $100 to $200 cheaper than it would be at a Great Wolf Lodge. Now, you can save some money by looking online at certain places like Groupon or all the other alternatives to be able to get cheaper deals. Great Wolf Lodge also provides at times a lot of discounts depending on whether you're a first responder or if there's a certain time of the month. Like right now, I think that they're running like 20 to 25% off in June for rooms at the Great Wolf Lodge. We went to Great Wolf Lodge during the winter, and I can tell you right now, it is a great place to go if you're just planning, if you want to do something in the winter, and obviously there's not a beach open or a water park open. It's a great alternative for you to just get a room for a night or two and be able to enjoy the water park with your kids. It's a great place. There's other stuff to do as well. They have a huge arcade. They got a mini golf. They got a little mining area, and which will now get into some of the benefits if you decide to get a room at the Great Wolf Lodge. There are passes that you absolutely have to get if you decide to go to the Great Wolf Lodge. One of the things that me and my wife got for the kids is called a Wolf Pass. It's about $74.99 per child, and it provides you with a lot of added benefits at a discount. Now, it's dropping about $75 per child. Now that sounds like a lot. I'm going to drop a screen recording here of some of the benefits that it comes with, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's definitely worth it. Now, one of those benefits includes one free game to a Magic Quest or a Shadow Quest. And the best thing that I can describe what that is it's basically an interactive game kind of set up throughout the hotel that the kids basically go get a wand, they can decorate it, they customize it to however they want, and then they can go throughout the hotel and basically complete the quest. It's kind of a fun little gimmick, but what you're essentially paying for whenever you get the Magic Quest is the wand itself. And the wand is only really compatible with, obviously, the Great Wolf Lodge and its Magic Quest and Shadow Quest. So, if you're not really feeling like dropping a dime on the Magic Quest, which you do get one free game, obviously, with this Wolf Pass. But, one thing that you can exchange for it is Build-A-Bear. So I'm sure a lot of you parents out there know what Build-A-Bear is. If you've had a child for a few years at this point, you've probably run into at least one Build-A-Bear, whether it's been a mall, an amusement park, or some touristy area. There's always a Build-A-Bear. They're pretty cool little toys that you can customize them, especially if you have a girl or even a boy. Sometimes boys like stuffed animals. Not judging. But, you know, this is one of the things that you can exchange for the Magic Quest. And when I say exchange, you literally get a free Build-A-Bear. Now, if any one of you have done Build-A-Bear before, it can get really, really pricey. For example, these Build-A-Bears can range somewhere between $30 to $50 depending on what you get. I think even up to $60 sometimes, depending on if it's like a name brand like Harry Potter, so on and so forth. One of the other cool things that comes with it, if you have a Wolf Pass, is getting 20% off the merchandise. So not only are you getting a free stuffed animal that usually costs somewhere between $30 to $60, but you're also saving money on the apparel, because that's where they're going to get you, is the apparel. The apparel really adds up, especially if you customize the crap out of your bear. So, just my opinion, if you're going to use the Wolf Pass in its full extension, I would probably stay away from the Magic Quest thing, unless you guys want to, for maybe the nostalgic reasons or just kind of have an experience or whatever. But if you actually want to get something physical, then that is an option as well. You can switch out the Build-A-Bear, or switch out the Magic Quest and the Shadow Quest for a Build-A-Bear. All you have to do is just go downstairs to where the Build-A-Bear is, and just tell them that you would rather you want to exchange your Magic Quest for the Build-A-Bear, and they'll allow you to do that and get 20% off all the apparel. Very cool idea. Like I said, I'll put something on the screen here, show you all the benefits. But if you are planning on staying a couple nights at the Great Wolf Lodge, this is definitely something that you want to get or think about, because it's going to save you a buck or two, because you also get some food with it as well. And if you're going to eat at the Great Wolf Lodge, it's very expensive. So, speaking of expensive, now we're going to kind of get into a little bit of the expenses of the parks themselves. And I'm going to tell you right now, better listen closely, because what I'm going to get into are the passes, and it's going to save you a bunch of money. Listen up. So a lot of these Cedar Fair parks are going to be pretty similar in price, give or take maybe $5 or $10. So pay attention, because it will add up soon enough. So you get to the park, and the first thing that you're going to have to do, and generally this is a national average between a lot of Cedar Fair parks, like I said before, between $5 to $10. But at Kings Island, it's going to run you about $35 for parking per vehicle. Then once you get into the park, and once you get to the front gate, you have to pay for admission. So let's say that you're not a first responder or military, or you're not like a little infant, obviously, and it's not a special day, or you don't have any discounts. You're just Mr. Average Joe Schmo. You showed up to Kings Island with your family, and you decided to spend a whole day there. It's going to run you about $45 per person. So, let's say that you have a family of 4. You've already paid for parking. If you do the math correctly, 45 times 4 plus 35 is going to run you about $215. So now your total is at $215. Alright, so you get to the park. It's 10 a.m. You want to stay there until 10 p.m. when the park closes. You're going to be there for a whole day. You're toughing it out. You're going to be like, alright, I'm here for the day. I've already spent $215 to get into this place. I'm here for the long haul. Well, now you're hungry. It's going on in the afternoon, and you want to get some lunch. Well, depending on where you go, typically the average is going to cost you somewhere between $50 to $70 for a family of 4. Pretty expensive. Now it's dinner time, and you need to get another meal in your stomach. So again, for a family of 4, it's going to be somewhere between $50 to $70 depending on where you go. Now you just spent almost $140 just on food alone, plus the $215 that you've spent just getting inside the park. Alright, now you're at $355 just for the 2 meals, getting inside the park, and parking your vehicle itself. That's not including, throughout the day that maybe your kids or your wife or somebody else might want to get a refreshment, which will probably cost you somewhere between $4 to $5 depending on what you get during the day. Well, you went there for the entire day. Let's just say that it's your first time at Kings Island and you want to get some memorabilia to, remember your experience. Get some souvenirs. Well, you know how amusement parks are. Once you walk in that door and once you drop your dollar on the counter, it's probably going to cost you at least $2 more because it's an amusement park. So expect to pay a little bit more than what something would actually cost in a retail store like Walmart, Target, so on and so forth. But now you probably have spent another additional $50, possibly $100, depending on what kind of souvenir you got. Alright, well, the day's not over yet. You just spent $455 so far. Let's just say top dollar you spent at the souvenir shop. You spent about $100 there, right? So now you're at $455 for the day. Well, let's just say that you and your kids or your wife, or let's just say all 4 of you, or however many there are of you, get on a roller coaster and you get a really cool picture on a roller coaster. So if anybody has ever been to any roller coaster amusement park, anytime you get on a ride, typically there's usually a camera hidden somewhere on that ride, and it'll try to get a picture of you doing something, either making a goofy face, your hair blowing in the wind, or you just posing to be goofy for the picture itself. Well, I can tell you right now, they're going to be expensive as well. Just to kind of give you an example. So if you walk into the park, a lot of times there's a photographer and they'll ask you if you want to get your picture in front of the Eiffel Tower on like the very beginning of International Street. Well, they'll give you a card, and like within the next couple hours, you can go to one of the photo booths at the front of the park. From there, you can get one picture that you took for about $20, either digitally or physical. That's $20, ladies and gentlemen, for one photo in front of the Eiffel Tower. That's only a third of the scale of the actual Eiffel Tower. Now, that's a really cool picture. Maybe you want to spend $20, but now you're at $475 just by getting another picture for your memorabilia. You're almost at $500 for the day. Alright, so let's just say that you made this a vacation spot and you're here for the long haul. You're here for another, another day, another 2 days, another 3 days. You're making this a little bit of a vacation spot for you and your family. You heard that Kings Island is the place to be, and it's got all the roller coasters that you want to see and all the entertainment that you and your family will enjoy. Well, one day you've almost spent $500 just in the park alone. Now let's just say, for instance, the next day you don't buy any souvenirs. Well, you're still over $400 in the hole just to get to and from Kings Island. Now, there's a remedy to this. And of course, that remedy is getting season passes. Now, if you're a person who's planning on going to Kings Island probably no more than, let's say 3 times during the season, this might not be something for you. But if you're going to go at least 3 or even more times during the season, this is definitely something that you might want to look into. So Kings Island does offer a variety of season passes, one of which is their actual passes to the park. There's a silver pass, there's a gold pass, and there's a prestige pass. The silver pass itself is about $110 per person. Gold pass is $145 per person, and the prestige pass is $350 per person. Now I'll put up on the screen, I've done this for a previous video, but I'll put up on the screen a lot of the benefits that all three of these cards provide. Now, in my opinion, it is my opinion, I think that the Gold Pass is the best bang for your buck. And it kind of provides you a little bit of everything that you might need in a more practical way. It's reasonably priced. It's obviously less than half the price of a Prestige Pass, and you get just about the same benefits as a Prestige Pass, like minus the VIP areas, or versus getting 10% off, you get 20% off, so on and so forth. Remember what I said. Getting in the park itself was about $180 for a family of 4. So it's $45 per person. You've just spent more money trying to get into the park than buying one gold pass to get into the park. Now, if you were to go multiple days, that's 3 times 180. At that point, you might want to do your math and think about and outweigh your options, especially with all the benefits that come with these passes, and look into getting something like a gold pass, or at the very least a silver pass. These passes offer a lot of benefits that are kind of hidden, if you will, that not a lot of people know about. Of course, there are the benefits that I've showed you and listed, and there's other benefits that come with these passes as well. For example, the Gold Pass. Each gold pass that you get will allow you to bring one friend for free, depending on the day or the month. So, if you got a Gold Pass, you can bring one friend in for free of charge. They don't have to pay $45. Congratulations, they got him for free. And we also showed you a video of how that works. Basically, this is attached to your pass. You'll just have to click on your pass, go to your benefits, and then you'll see it right there. You show it to the attendant. Even if you're having issues trying to find the app, the attendants are trained to show you where it is on your phone as well, so they can guide you, and then scan it at the beginning of the gate, and you're able to get your friend in for free. So that's $45 right there that is completely free for the next person. That's a huge benefit. So if you have somebody who's never been to Kings Island before, and you've been there already one time, and you're like, this place is great, you're going to have to come with me. Well, now they get to experience it too for free. There's other benefits that come with the cards too. I'm not going to get a whole lot into it, but there's certain perks that you can get throughout the year depending on how many times you go or how much money you spend or whatever. It's kind of like almost like a Kroger card. You get fuel points, right? So however much you spend at the store is however much you get off at the fuel pump. Well, same thing with these cards. However many times you use the card, you get certain benefits. Like, for example, if you go to the park a certain amount of times, you get an extra 20% off on your merchandise, which is huge. So, like, for example, one of my friends had to get some swimming trunks. It was the day that we went on Memorial Day weekend, and I allowed him to use my extra 20% off. So the pants that were normally $45 went to a nice, well, I guess you could say normal price for swimming trunks, $32. That saved him a huge amount of money. So this is a huge benefit. So it's another one of those things that you're going to have to take into your mind and think about whenever you think about getting these passes. All of the extra benefits that come with them. All right. Now that you've got your Gold Pass, Silver Pass, Prestige Pass, whatever you got, hopefully the Gold Pass, because that's my personal favorite. Now that you got it, what do you do now? So, like I said before, typically for a family of 4, it's going to cost you somewhere between $50 or $70, depending on where you go, for a meal, per meal, right? Well, if you have a Gold Pass and you don't have what I'm about to talk about, a meal plan, you do get an extra 10 to 20% off that meal, depending on where you go. Or, like I mentioned, you can get a meal plan. So the meal plan that our family has is an all-season dining, which allows you to have 2 meals per day, 4 hours apart from each other, and it usually starts about $109 per person. Now we've got that for all 4 of us, and I'm going to tell you right now, you get a heck of a lot of food for this dining plan. I mean a whole lot of food. I'll put it on the screen of one of the places that we went to, and I'm like, you get a bunch of food. Like, there's just so much food that my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old can't even eat all the food, and we end up eating it for them. And that's probably why I've gained a couple pounds. But hey, that's where that dad bod comes in. So, get that meal plan. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be worth it, especially if you're planning on going multiple days of the season. It's going to save you $1 or $2. Like I said, it starts off right around $109 per person. Even if you wanted to try it out and you and your wife wanted to get just for you and her and then have the kids eat off your plate, it's probably still worth it, because like I said, you get so much food that even a family of 4 could probably just share off of 2 plates. And like I said, if you eat twice a day for a family of 4, you're probably going to be dropping about $140 per day. So you're almost like, that's more than what it would cost you to get one meal plan for the whole season. So one of the things that the dining plan doesn't include are drinks. In order for you to get drinks, you're gonna have to also get an additional season drinking plan, and that usually starts off about $35 per person, and it can get you from anything from like fountain drinks to slushies to even hot chocolate whenever Winterfest comes around. Now, I can tell you right now, if you're not going to get the meal plan, at least get the drinking plan. The drinking plan for $35, you get a drink every 15 minutes, and you know, as hot as the summer gets, it can definitely work out for you in the long run. All right, so we talked about pictures, right? To get your picture at the gate, it was like $20 for one picture, right? Well, if you're going to go there for multiple times of the year, this is definitely something that you want to look into. Or this is probably one of the season passes that you might want to get. They have a season pass. Let me rephrase that. They have a season pass, and they also have a daily pass. Daily pass is going to cost you right around $35. Season pass is about $56.99, and I'm talking about the Fun Picks plan. So Fun Picks is something that Cedar Fair came up with, and it's a season pass or a daily pass, depending on what you get, to be able to get on an unlimited amount of times depending on what you get, whether if you get the daily pass, obviously an unlimited amount of times during the day, and a season pass, unlimited amount of time during the entire season. And you only have to get one of these. You don't, unlike the other passes that I mentioned, you don't have to get one for each one of your passes. You can just get one, attach it to that, and it's good for everybody. I can give you an example. We have the season pass of Fun Picks. So the last Kings Island video that we did, when we brought my friends into Kings Island, a lot of them wanted to get pictures either with all of us individually or just some of the rides that they rode. Well, I allowed them to use my Fun Picks to be able to get some of those pictures at some of the photo booths so they can have some memories of their day at Kings Island. And it works either way, it doesn't matter. If I'm not even around, here's another little tip and trick that you can use. So let's just say that I'm at Camp Snoopy with my kids, and we're kind of taking a break, and some of my friends who don't have kids want to go and ride Orion. Well, they got a really awesome pick on Orion, but I'm not there to give them my Fun Picks pass. Well, you can ask the person behind the desk for a card. They'll basically scan that card with a little QR code on it, and then I'll keep that card, and at the end of the day, you go to the main photo booth towards the front of the park, and then I'll attach that to my account, and you can do with whatever you want with that picture later, whether you send it to them through email, Facebook, whatever. Now they got their picture, and they don't have to worry about you having to be there to get their picture. Little tip of the day: ask the tenant to give you a card, just like they do at the front desk. It's got a little QR code on it, and that way later on during the day you'll be able to scan it at one of the photo booths with your pass, and then download that to your app itself. Alright, so let's talk about one of the last things, or one of the last perks that you want to get if you're going to be going to this park or parks throughout the season. I will be talking about the All Parks Pass. Now, this pass will allow you to attach to each one of your passes, primarily the Gold Pass and up, to be able to go to any park that is owned by the Cedar Fair Company. And now that Cedar Fair has bought Six Flags, that also includes all of the Six Flags parks as well. So if you plan on going on a hiatus and you want to go see all these parks that Cedar Fair has to offer, this is a way for you to do that and not have to pay a dime. That includes free parking, free admission, and all the other perks that come with the Gold Pass, Prestige Pass, that comes with those cards as well. So the All Parks Pass is going to set you back about another $85 to $90 per person to attach to your passes. Now that sounds like a heck of a lot of money, because you've already dropped, $145 on the Gold Pass alone per person, and now you got to drop another $90. Well, let me tell you, it's worth it. If you're anybody that's like us, who lives a little bit closer to Kings Island and is able to go at least maybe once or twice a month during the summer, or even wants to go and do the Winterfest towards the end of the year, or the Halloween Haunt towards the end of the year, but also wants to take a vacation towards a more vacation-y spot like Cedar Point, then this is a way for you to do that. Adding the All Perks Pass will allow you to do, like I said before, to go to any of the Cedar Fair parks and use any of the benefits that's on that card at that park. So, for example, if you want to go to Carowinds in North Carolina, South Carolina area, and you want to be able to get into that park and use all the benefits that's on your Gold Pass, you can. All of the perks that's on that card is also included for that park, not just included for Kings Island. So to be able to do this sounds a little tricky, but it's not. So originally you will have to get your card to whatever your local amusement park is closest, or whatever your local Cedar Fair park is. So for us, we got Kings Island. So we got Kings Island Gold Passes. As long as you get the All Perks Pass attached to it, you can also use that at other parks. It doesn't matter. You're using your Gold Pass at Kings Island, but since that All Perks Pass is attached to that card now, you can go to Cedar Point and everywhere else that's a Cedar Fair park as well. That's an additional really cool perk that you can have if you plan on going to any of the other parks around the nation. We're now going to move on to Cedar Point. Since I've already talked about all of the perks and all the passes that you can get with all your season passes, and one of which was the All Perks Pass. The reason why we get that is because our main vacation, our main squeeze, our favorite place to go to is Cedar Point, Ohio, in Sandusky, and we're going to show you why. And I'm going to go through it, like I said, with like I did with Kings Island. Go through a little bit of a brief history about Cedar Point, and kind of go over the park a little bit, the layout, and what to do, where to stay, where to go, and what to bring if you're planning on having a vacation at Cedar Point. So let's get started. Cedar Point. If anybody's ever gone to any of the Great Lakes in the northern part of the United States of America, they can sit there and tell you how massive these lakes are. They're absolutely huge. And in some aspects, a lot of people like to consider them inland seas. Now, they're one of the largest groups of freshwater bodies. They're all grouped up together. And Cedar Point is located at one of the smaller of the lakes, which is still a massive lake in its own aspect, Lake Erie. Lake Erie has a lot of history in its own right. And there was a famous battle that happened on the lake as well during the War of 1812. It involved a famous captain called Commodore Perry, and one of those monuments is dedicated to Commodore Perry on one of the many islands that's on Lake Erie, and that island is Put-in Bay. So to kind of put you in perspective of some of the history of Lake Erie, just think about that. There was an actual ship battle on this lake. Now, think about your local lake and putting a huge boat with cannons and everything else and having a battle in the middle of it. It'd be very, very cramped for about 90% of the lakes in the U.S. So that kind of puts you in perspective of how massive these lakes are, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a brief history of how cool Lake Erie is. I mentioned one of the islands that Commodore Perry's monuments on, Put-in Bay. There's also Kelly's Island, and there's a couple other islands as well. So with this massive lake, which is kind of like an inland sea, there's a lot of island hopping that you can do as well. So if you get bored at Cedar Point, one of the cool things that it has on the park itself is a ferry that will take you to either Kelly's Island or Put-in Bay, and then take you back to the park in its own marina. So that's going to kind of kickstart one of the things that I want to talk about Cedar Point. So originally, Cedar Point was located on this peninsula, or somewhat of an island, if you will, at the time, and it was established during around 1870. And originally was a place for people to kind of, relax at the beach, do some fishing, and it was the only way to get to it at the time was by ferry. Over time, the peninsula began to build bathhouses in addition to its very luxurious beaches and its great fishing. There was also a famous building that was put there called the Grand Pavilion, where there was a lot of dances and concert halls and everything else that would be performed at this Grand Pavilion. In 1892, now that Cedar Point is starting to become more of a destination of fun, and with places like Coney Island and other places starting to experiment more and more with things like roller coasters, eventually Cedar Point will get its very first roller coaster put on the island called Switchback Railway. The roller coaster itself became such a success that around 1901 it added an additional roller coaster called Loop to Loop. Both of these roller coasters were very basic in their design, and for example, Switchback Railway was just a roller coaster that would go down one hill and then would have to go down another hill as well. So they were very rudimentary in their own design, but nevertheless they were very popular. And with its popularity and with it growing new attractions, a few years later, after 1901, Cedar Point established a new hotel called the Breakers Hotel. It become no surprise to anybody who knows anything about history. The Great Depression happened, and of course there was World War II, and the park itself struggled to keep afloat all the way up until the 1950s. Alright, so the 1950s rolled around, and with the park struggling, it eventually got bought by some new owners. And those new owners wanted to essentially change the way Cedar Point was. And one of those things that they wanted to do was essentially stop making it so much of an amusement park and start building residential houses. With such a rich history and almost being 100 years old, you can imagine that the public outcry in Sandusky was not a good one at all. And eventually, the owners who bought the island itself heard out the people and decided to renovate the park itself and try to basically revamp it back into an amusement park. Within the first 80 years, there's already been a huge amount of history with Cedar Point as it is. And now that the 60s are starting to roll around, the park is going to see somewhat of a boom. And it doesn't seem to stop, and it hasn't stopped even to this day. In 1964, Cedar Point decided to build a ride called Blue Streak. Blue Streak has kind of a Coney Island finesse to it. It's a very simple ride, but a very fun ride, and it's still one of the rides that's at the park today, kind of adding a little bit of a nostalgic feeling. And it's a great ride for all riders, pretty much from 46 inches and up. Another family favorite is the Cedar Creek Mine Ride. It was built in 1969 and still remains there today in Cedar Point. It wasn't everything that Cedar Point had wanted. It not only wanted to have a bunch of family fun rides for everybody to enjoy, but it started going after some record breakers. And back in 1976, it decided to build the Corkscrew. And the Corkscrew at the time had the most loops and twists for its times, with putting people upside down at least 3 times. In 1978, they decided to build the tallest and fastest wooden roller coaster of the time, the Gemini. That same year, it was such a success with the Gemini that Cedar Point also decided to make the Junior Gemini, which goes under a different name today. The Junior Gemini, now the Wilderness Run, was a family favorite for kids to be able to ride as well, and it's another roller coaster that's still there today. 10 years later, Cedar Point will then make another roller coaster called the Iron Dragon, which again is still there today. It's now 1989. We're 1 year away from the 90s. And Cedar Point decided to try something a little bit new that they haven't done in a while since Gemini, and they want another world record breaker. This roller coaster is widely considered one of the first roller coasters to start what was considered the Coaster Wars. And of course, I'm talking about, if anybody who's a roller coaster fan out there, Magnum XL 200. But Cedar Point wasn't done yet. They wanted to have another world record breaking roller coaster. And then came Mean Streak in 1991. Mean Streak at the time, for a very, very brief time, was considered the tallest and fastest wooden roller coaster. And it only remained that way for a very short period of time. When I say short period, it's probably no more than a month, and then it got beat by another roller coaster. But it still added a little bit of a roster to its many roller coasters that it already had. Now, Mean Streak today is not there, no longer there. It's actually been revamped and renamed Steel Vengeance, and it was remade in 2018. And today, Steel Vengeance is arguably one of the best roller coasters considered in the world. 1994, you had Raptor, and then in 1996, you had Mantis, which is now called Rougarou. The 90s is pumped full with all of these brand new roller coasters and just seems to keep going up in the numbers. In 2000, Cedar Point decided to go, all out or nothing, if you will, and decided to make the world's tallest and the world's fastest roller coaster again. And of course, I'm talking about the Millennium Force. The last roller coasters, and one of the last roller coasters, I should say, that's really notable that I'm going to mention is the release of Top Thrill Dragster in 2003. Top Thrill Dragster was widely considered one of the most favorite roller coasters of anybody, and if anybody had to go to Cedar Point, they had to not only ride Millennium Force, Magnum, but they had to also ride Top Thrill Dragster. At the time, when it was built, it was the world's tallest roller coaster at 420 some odd feet, launching you at 120 miles an hour. Now, unfortunately, the roller coaster had a lot of downfalls, and eventually, back in, I believe in 2023, it decided to get into a revamp and renovate the roller coaster, and it's now called Top Thrill Dragster 2, in which it not only launches you up one hill, but before you go up the first hill, you go back down, up another hill that's about 400 feet tall, and then down that hill, and then finally you go over what's called the top hat, which is the over 420 feet, and then back down. At one point, you're even still going at 120 miles an hour, adding even more thrills to the ride itself. That's just a handful of the roller coasters at Cedar Point. And Kings Island does have a lot of notable roller coasters themselves, one of which is like I mentioned before, the Beast. But I feel like Cedar Point definitely has a lot more roller coasters to offer as far as like notable history. They're kind of like the A-team of roller coasters, and if you're ever going to go to any roller coaster park. And they're already building another roller coaster for this summer, which is called Siren's Curse, which is going to be one heck of a ride itself. So all in all, as of right now, Cedar Point has about 19 roller coasters just in the park itself. They don't call it America's Roller Coast for nothing. So we went over a little bit of a brief history of Cedar Point. We got to learn some of the interesting rides that they've gotten. And as you can see, up to today, Cedar Point's definitely had one heck of a history when it comes to amusement parks. And still today, Cedar Point is considered the second oldest amusement park in the world. That's pretty impressive. And it's got a pretty impressive roster to compare with. Now, one of the very unique things about Cedar Point is the fact that it is on a peninsula, and there's a mile-long beach right in front of the actual park itself. Kind of brings up my next point. I kind of want to point out some of the areas here in Cedar Point because there's a lot of them. It's very similar to Kings Island, but you're on essentially what's an island. And if you had to compare the two between Kings Island and Cedar Point, they're about the same size when it comes to square mileage. But what Cedar Point has that's obviously Kings Island doesn't have, and I mentioned it a couple times already, is a beach. So when you go into the main gate from the parking lot, you will have to kind of go towards the middle back of the park to get to the beach. To be able to get into the beach, all you have to do is just walk out. It's a public beach, everybody. You don't have to pay extra to go in here. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to pay for tickets to go into Cedar Point to get to the beach. You can literally walk onto the beach from the parking lot. You'll have to pay for parking, but you can still get to the beach from the parking lot and not have to pay any additional fee. Which that's pretty cool, because considering the fact that that's originally what Cedar Point was established upon, was going to a peninsula that had a beautiful beach. And when I say this place is a beautiful beach, everybody, it's one of the cleanest beaches I've ever been to. And I've been to beaches by the ocean. I've been to beaches in other parts or other lakes and other parts of Lake Erie. This is one of the cleanest beaches that you'll ever be on, and it's very well maintained by the park itself, which makes it even better. Alright, so Cedar Point has 3 entrances to the actual amusement park itself. There's the Magnum entrance towards the back end of the park. There's the beach entrance towards the back middle of the park, if you will. And there's the main entrance at the very front, where one of the roller coasters is. You can't miss it. Gatekeeper. I mean, they call it Gatekeeper for a reason. It's right there at the gate. Alright, well, Cedar Point's layout is definitely way different than Kings Island's. And just like Kings Island, I'm going to plop up a map up here, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what Cedar Point looks like. Obviously, with it being on this peninsula, it's more narrow than Kings Island, but longer than Kings Island. And essentially, it does end up becoming this huge loop around the peninsula, and it'll get you right back up to the front of the park as well. There's several different areas that are kind of themed, but Cedar Point is known for really only having one other theme to the park, and that's Frontier Town. Now, unlike Kings Island, I think, in my opinion, Cedar Point does have a lot more rides for younger groups of children. Now, there's a part of the park that's been there ever since I believe the 90s. I mean, it's been there since I was there as a kid, and there really hasn't been a whole lot that's changed, and it's called Kitty Kingdom. A lot of these rides are very simple, almost like like a fair, if you will, where you get into like a car or a helicopter or whatnot, and in a very merry-go-round style, you just essentially just go in circles, and there's, from what I think, if I remember correctly, there's really not much of a height limit. Obviously, an infant's not going to be sitting in one of these rides, but anybody that's possibly around the age of 1 or 2 might be able to ride these rides, depending on how tall they are, or how big they are, or how capable they are of staying in one place at once. It also has a Camp Snoopy of their own. It has a bunch of kid rides as well, and it has a couple roller coasters, 2 of which that are notable. The previously named Junior Gemini, which is now the Wilderness Run, and it's also got the Woodstock Express. They're fairly good rides. I think even parents can get on them, so it's great to get on the ride with your kids and maybe even get their first experience on a roller coaster if they've never been on one before. Alright, so let's get into the water park now. So, unlike at Kings Island, where you can get to the water park from the park itself, you actually have to go to the water park separately. Now, they're not forever and a day away. Essentially, you'll have to the easiest way to get to it if you get from the front of the park is you have to go to the back of the park where the entrance is to Magnum. And there's also a back parking lot that's located right in front of the water park itself. One of the unfortunate things about Cedar Shores is that you do have to pay to get in, separately from your admission to Cedar Point. It's unfortunate, but unlike where Kings Island, where you pay an admission to get in to the park, and then you can get to the water park just by that same admission, you have to pay a separate submission from your Cedar Point pass to get another pass to Cedar Shores. Alright, so like we discussed towards the middle of this video, as long as you have a gold pass or above, it will allow you to get into Cedar Shores without having to pay any extra fee. So as long as you got a season pass, gold pass, and you have the all parks pass to go with it, you're able to get into Cedar Shores without an additional fee. So that makes another additional benefit to having these perks and these passes. Let's talk about things that you want to bring to Cedar Point. If you're going to be spending an entire day at Cedar Point, you want to bring something very similar to what you would bring to Kings Island. You want to bring your wagon, you want to bring your backpack, you want to bring stuff for the water park, and the stuff that you bring for the water park can also be useful as well for the stuff for the beach. The only other thing that I would probably say that you would need in addition to stuff that you would need for the water park is possibly some beach chairs or even a beach tent. I remember in the last video I did on our beach day, I think I was supposed to provide a picture of our beach tent and what it looks like. I promise you I will do that in this video. They're very, very cool. Just like, you know, a beach umbrella, but unlike a beach umbrella, it's just like a tent. You can shut this tent, you can change in it, you can be able to just relax inside of it, open up windows, let the breeze come in, and they're just as portable as a folding camping chair. So, and they're a dime a dozen. You can find them on Amazon, you can find them on eBay, you can find them just about anywhere. I mean, even at your local camping store or at a Walmart or whatnot. They're everywhere, and they're super light. And like I said, they got a little strap, put it in the bag, put it on your back, go out there, or just load everything up on your wagon and go out on the beach. So, like I said, that's probably the only additional thing that you want to bring to Cedar Point if you're going to be spending an entire day there. Maybe a couple beach artifacts, because obviously, if you want to relax on the beach and make it a beach thing, there you go. You got your beach chair, you got your beach tent. Let's say now that you want to do vacation at Cedar Point. You don't want to spend the entire day there, but now you want to spend a week there or 3 days there. The only thing that I can suggest to you is that, especially for both of these parks, whether it's Cedar Point or Kings Island, is that they're very massive parks. They can be very overwhelming, especially Cedar Point, because there's just so much to do. Not just on the peninsula, because like I mentioned before, there is a ferry that can take you, because they have their own marina on the peninsula, that can take you from one island to another. So if one day you decide, you know, I have had enough with the park, I want to go visit Put-in Bay, or I want to go visit Kelly's Island, you can do that as well. There's a beach, there's a water park, there's the actual amusement park. There's just so much to do at Cedar Point, it could be very overwhelming, which comes to my point. I would highly recommend spending at least 2 to 3 days at the very least if you're going to be going to Cedar Point. Cedar Point's going to be your next destination for a vacation. Let me give you a couple of examples of places you could stay. And these places are owned by Cedar Fair themselves. Just a couple of examples of places that you can literally go to that are owned by Cedar Point and that are literally just a mile away from the actual causeway to get to the peninsula or to Cedar Point itself. One of which is the Express Hotel. The Express Hotel is one of the cheaper hotels owned by Cedar Point. It's still a really nice hotel. It's got great amenities, and right there in the middle of the hotel itself, it's even got itself a little splash park and pool and everything that you would need to kind of cool off or just relax after a hard day of walking around at Cedar Point. One of the other places that you can go to, and is also owned by Cedar Point, and is kind of Cedar Point's own version of the Great Wolf Lodge, is called Castaway Bay. Just like Great Wolf Lodge, Castaway Bay offers an indoor water park about the same size in comparison, and it has a lot of the same features that a Great Wolf Lodge would have. It just doesn't have as many gimmicks as the Great Wolf Lodge, such as the Magic Quest and so forth, but it does have an arcade, it has a mini golf, and so there's other stuff to do at the hotel other than just go to the actual water park. One thing I think I forgot to mention between the Great Wolf Lodge and Castaway Bay in this video is that if you buy a room, it doesn't matter how many days you get, that does include your admission to the water park as well. So just keep that in mind. If you go to Great Wolf Lodge, it's and you're thinking, man, I'm paying like $300 a night for this room. Well, just keep in mind that also includes your admission to the water park, unlimited amount of times going in and out. Castaway Bay and Express Hotel are both about the same price, depending on what kind of room you get, how many people go with you, and how many days you stay. But if you want to go a little bougie and you want to do the most convenient way, which is what I would recommend because we've done it already about 3 or 4 years at this point, is the Breakers Hotel. Like I mentioned in the brief history about Cedar Point, Breakers Hotel has been around for almost a millennia at this point. Actually, more than a millennia at this point. I'm sorry. It's been around for over 100 years. Obviously, there's been additions to this hotel, but the biggest benefit about the Breakers Hotel is that it's smack dab in the middle of the entire thing. You literally walk outside in front of the hotel, boom, there's the beach. You look to your left, boom, walk 5 minutes that way, you're at the water park. You turn to your right, boom, walk 5 minutes that way, you're at the amusement park. That is one of the biggest benefits of staying at the Breakers Hotel, besides the fact that it's a very, very nice hotel on its own. I'm not going to lie to you, but if you go to the Breakers Hotel, you're probably going to be paying at least $100 more a night, comparable to the other two hotels that I mentioned. Like I said, if you want to save a buck or two, go for it, but at the end of the day, you're definitely paying for the convenience whenever you stay at the Breakers Hotel. It's a great hotel. It's got one indoor pool. It's also got 3 additional outdoor pools. One outdoor pool on each side of the hotel, including one nice splash park or kid area for the kids themselves, with a couple slides and a place for the adults to sit down and watch. It's great for all ages. Very, very fun place to be. Great hotel. It's got great restaurants. We've made it a tradition of every year of going to one of the restaurants that they have inside, which is kind of like a hibachi grill. It's called Tomo. Great food, great staff. Kids love it. And they've got other places like a TGI Fridays and a Perkins as well inside of the hotel. So I highly recommend that if you're going to go to Cedar Point, at least try to stay at the Breakers Hotel for maybe no more than 3 days. Give it a go, see how you like it. I want to tell you right now, you're not going to regret it. Every year that we've been there, we've never had an issue with the Breakers Hotel. Never. The staff are very friendly. It's almost like they pick the top people to be there at the Breakers Hotel. Maybe somebody else's experience is different than me. Let me know in the comments. But you know, I've never had an issue there, even if I've been like in a standard hotel versus like a suite. I've never had any issues with anybody, and I tell you, it's just a great place to be, and it's the most convenient way to stay at Cedar Point if you're going to do it. So if you're going to do it right, definitely try to stay at the Breakers Hotel. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I know this was a long one. I went into great detail about these parks. I went into great detail about these passes. I really hope this was helpful for you guys. I put a lot of effort in these videos. Like I said, I tip my hat to all those full-time YouTubers, especially those that have got full-time jobs like me. It's not easy trying to balance this, but it's, I love doing this. I love being able to share my experiences with others and being able to give them the tips that they need to know for their next vacation, especially with these two parks that we love so much. So before we end the video, I kind of just want to show you guys a little bit of a montage of my own childhood, and I want to explain to you the reason why we do this. The reason why us, family men, family women, do this for our kids. Instead of going out of our way and buying ourselves luxury cars or luxury houses, we try to provide our children with the most lasting memories that they can have for the rest of their life. It's the best way that you can basically have a piece of yourself to them for the rest of their lives, and it'll last even longer than obviously that you will be on this earth. And it's very important for you to establish this for your children and then for their children in the future. Making memories is probably one of the most important things you can ever do for any of your children. And like I said before, those memories are going to outlast you. They're going to outlast you. They're going to stick with your kids, and they're going to remember it, and then hopefully they'll do it for their kids. Because I certainly remember when I was younger and my mom and dad brought me to places like this. It was one of the coolest experiences in the world, and as a 5 or 9-year-old or whatever, it was like I was going to a different planet. I was going to this adventure that I've never been to, and with as old as I am now today, I can probably tell you what the paint still smells like whenever I went to these rides, and I got to see them when they were brand new in the 90s. So these are lasting impressions that you're going to have on your children, like my mom and dad made lasting impressions on me when I was younger. So with that being said, I really hope you guys I hope you subscribe, and until next time, keep chasing your dreams.